talk about this later, okay? I'm going to talk hair products on live Facebook. Professional.
It looks like we're live right now, actually.
You're live right now. We're live.
I think he's going to let us know in the chat box.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, he told us not to rush the beat, so.
We're live.
We are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonny Gowdy. I'm a musician here in Austin, and I work with the Austin Music Foundation, and I host and produce the podcast, How Did I Get Here? Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're all safe and in good health. Welcome to the Austin Music Foundation presents part 2 of the Time to Pivot series, Adjusting Your Music Business Strategy. For those of you who are new to the Austin Music Foundation, we're a 501c3 nonprofit arts organization whose core mission is to strengthen, connect, and advance the local music industry and community. And we do this through educational programming like this, professional development, focused mentoring through one-on-one consultation, and networking opportunities. Austin Music Foundation was established in 2002 and remains one of the city's only service organizations dedicated to delivering year-round music business training at no cost to the local music community. For more information on Austin Music Foundation programs and to get involved, check us out at austinmusicfoundation.org. On March 27th, weeks after the cancellation of South by Southwest, AMF hosted the first installment of this educational series in response to the COVID-19 crisis. The video has now reached over 10,000 views, and we're so proud to welcome back the amazing members of the Austin Managers Collective, plus a very special guest to provide insight on how to adjust your music business strategy. We would first off like to thank Steve Carlos Kirk at Streak Systems for bringing you this live stream, and I will introduce our wonderful panel. Once again, we are joined by the Austin Managers Collective, including Cris Flores from LORO Management. Please wave when I say your name. There you go, it's Cris LORO. Louie Carr from Own Path Media Group. Morgan Davis from Ovrld. Reno Dudley from Keys Street Music. Plus tonight, we are joined by a very special guest, 12-time Austin Music Award winner, 2017 Austin Music Foundation Artist Development Program alumni, recording artist and performer, Gina Chavez. Wave, Gina. All right. We have a lot to discuss tonight, so we'll save thank yous and announcements for the end. At around 8:30, we'll open up the panel to your questions, but we ask you to please put your questions into the comments now, as we'll be answering them later on, but we can go through them and figure out which ones to ask. First of all, as we get started, welcome Gina Chavez. You were not here last time.
I was not.
How are you doing?
I watched after the fact, so.
You did? Okay.
She's legally obligated to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
On the contract.
Yeah, it's part of the contract.
Is that the deal?
Any and all public appearances by me.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you've been doing through this quarantine time.
I've been not resting. I'll tell you that much. Oh my gosh. I will say I actually went live pretty early on. So I think it was March 14th that I started doing live streams at the urging of my manager. And it was great. You know, I think one of the cool things about doing that early was that we had a lot of attention quickly because not everybody was doing live streams at that point. I do feel like at this point, I've figured out that I was literally doing every day at 8 p.m. So I was like on a 21 day
daily.
Tour. Basically daily, like 21 days in a row. And I started to like really lose steam. For me, it was hard because I'm a performer that loves performing to a live audience. You know, some people do the YouTube thing or do the online and have been doing that for a really long time. I love getting in front of a live audience because it gives me energy. Even when I get on stage and I'm like, oh, I just like don't feel like doing this tonight. The second I'm on stage, I'm like, oh, I'm here.
Right.
And I'm excited. And I think for me, the live streams I've learned are great, but it's really hard to perform to my own face.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Are you doing the thing where you're able to read people's comments as they go, and are you responding to them?
We've tried a lot of different things. You know, I think there's merit in all of the things. So, you know, I've got like a little more of like a kind of a lighting setup, and, you know, we tried multiple camera angles, and then we had ones where the early days, back in March 14th, we were just doing, you know, a phone, and I could see the comments. And I think there's value in all of those. I think, you know, it's helpful for me to be able to engage with fans. And so that's kind of, I'm like, comment, I need to hear from you.
Right.
So anyway, but I've been live streaming. I am also putting out a record. I just released a single. You know, we've been doing a lot for having a wild time in our lives where there's potentially more time. So I think for me, I'm starting to learn that I need to like hold back a little bit and figure out how exactly I want to use my time.
Right.
So
we talked about that last time, like, you know, being careful of going overboard with trying to be quote unquote out there too much, right?
And so I'm, you know what I mean.
So you did those for 21 days, and where are you at now with the live streaming?
You know, so one of the things that I think Louie mentioned last time on the panel was that I do have this record coming out, and so we're actually doing a kind of a tour, a virtual tour that we are working on right now, as far as, you know, some of the places that we were going to perform, and obviously those shows fell off the map. You know, everybody right now, as Louie mentioned last time, everybody's looking for content. And so I think being able to partner with certain places to go live on their platforms, you know, so that I'm not constantly just going live to my own audience.
Right.
But being able to mix it up a little bit. And so I think that's kind of where we're at, is picking and choosing. You know, I've already been on some shows, for instance, that have been curated, you know, even worldwide. There was one called Curve that was organized by somebody in South Africa, and, you know, kind of geared towards the LGBTQ community. And so like I did that. We've done another one where I had an ASL interpreter, which was super cool. We played one for the Wharton Center, which is a place I'm going to play, God willing, in January. And so it was a way to get in front of their fans before I go there. So I think there's a lot of opportunities right now, but essentially I need to diversify my audience a little bit. Like, it's kind of like, how do we now go live for other people, give them content, be able to build an audience, you know, for me, and it's a win-win for everybody, because it's really a pretty low cost thing, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, totally. Yeah. So when is your album coming out?
In May.
In May. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll look for that. What is it going to be called?
Yeah, it's called La Que Manda, and La Que Manda in Spanish is kind of like the woman in charge.
Yeah, it's my grandma.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
That's right.
La Que Manda.
Johnny, we're going to do the rest of the conversation in Español, dale.
Okay, we should, just for our Latino friends.
There you go. Louie learned that from me.
I did.
Well, last time we talked, we went through a lot of different options that you guys as managers were going to be trying out with your artists and stuff. And so right now, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off by you guys explaining what you've done that's worked, some of your wins. And let's start with Louie, since Gina was talking about partnering with those clubs and stuff. You were talking about that last time you were in.
Correct. Well, I think Gina touched on it pretty succinctly as far as why it's important to diversify the crowd. Like, you can only like hit the same people. I see people that like are on every stream every night and they're loving it, and that's great. I love those people, but you know, you're not going to get everybody, the same people every night, and it's good to hit a new audience. Either way, like, the beautiful thing about what we're trying to do with Gina and her upcoming tour is we're going to hit those places. Like, we're hopefully building a live audience with a digital audience, you know? So people see Gina performing for the Wharton Center's Performing Arts Center's page, and then they're like, I love this. I'd love to see this in, you know, God willing, January. That's a huge benefit for us. You know, we're building hard tickets the digital way, you know?
Yeah.
And coming up with like new ways to do the same thing on a regular basis is like, it's never been, I don't want to sound, it's difficult, but I'm really happy that I have the privilege to do that. You know, like I understand the position we're in, being successful in what we do, you know, like the lights are still on, the internet's still on, like we're still paying bills. And, you know, so I'm grateful to have the challenges of how can I address this thing and still be creative, you know?
Sure.
Because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like, fuck music. I don't know where my next meal's coming from, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been on my mind a lot in the last month. And we've been able to do some charity stuff. There's some stuff but in the background that we're looking at, we haven't locked in. You know, it's a balance because we're trying to survive too, you know? So it's like, you want to respond to every person that emails you with like a charitable cause in a positive way, but it's like, hey, you know, we also had 45, 50 shows canceled just now. And, you know, I'd love
going
to
on with the Gina Chavez Foundation.
Right. Well, yeah, you don't want to be like, hey, that foundation's cool, but you know, we haven't quite hit our rent yet this month.
Right.
So it's just finding that balance, you know, like not stretching yourself too thin. You know, being candid, I was talking to Gina and Jody last week, and I was just feeling a little crispy, you know, because you're at home, and like home is supposed to be like the separation of work and state, and there's no separation now. So like, I think one of the things it's been nice the last few days is like at night, you know, going for a walk, and just like really like centering myself mentally, and then diving back into it in the morning and getting on phone calls, you know, still having exciting conversations. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
That's been sort of the month since we last talked.
Okay. What about you, Cris? Tell us about some of the things that have worked out for you with some of your artists that you were going to be trying out over the last month.
So the timing kind of worked out in a very lucky way for us with some of our artists. The timeline of our planning kind of seemed to align whether or not South by happened or shows canceling. So we were able to keep up with the strategy of our release, of my artists' releases. And so, you know, that's been really nice. And I mean, back to what Louie was saying on balance. It took a little bit or a lot of it to find a balance. And, you know, I've had to create pockets of my home that is like somewhere else to go. It's like some of those memes that you see, or I'm going to go get dressed to go hang out in the living room.
Right.
You know, turning this corner of my living room into like a comfy pillow hangout that's also my office, or, you know, going back and forth from my business partner and my romantic partner's home. Just, you know, that studio space is a way to get out of the house. And so we could safely go back and forth if we need to do that. So for me, I think that's a huge success that we've been able to somehow really adapt to a really traumatic and tragic period, and taking walks and things like that has been great. You know, we have an artist that filmed for a TV show before the whole pandemic happened, and the show's now airing. And so that's been great because they're not playing, you know, any gigs. We lost all of our gigs and our plans for touring and festivals for the summer. And then my partner here at LORO, Paul, is partnering and created what he's calling Ecolab, you know, electronic collaboration with several different local artists. And it's kind of just like an organic connection so that we're not forcing the creativity during a time where I hear from artists say that they just aren't feeling very creative right now.
Right.
And, you know, I really took to heart what Reno had said last time, in that, you know, he advised Alicia to take this time to just create. And if that's where the artist is at, this is a really beautiful time to do that, because I have seen some artists do that.
Right.
But then you've got others that it's a complete mental block. Their whole entire focus and mental bandwidth is on survival mode and traumatic pandemic mode. And so as a manager, I had to kind of really ease back and not force the creativity and kind of let those let those things happen on their own. So I think that it's successful that we're able to identify that, because if we weren't put into this situation, I maybe might have never been more comfortable to manage in that way.
Right. Right. What about you, Reno? Has Alicia been creating new music? Or
A lot of it.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time, like when we talk and everything, she'll tell me, like, I think your girl comes up with like a song idea or 3 of them every single day. So it's like, you know, she was saying, we stack a lot of content, even down to like, I was telling her, I was like, we now have time to like go into mixes and really just sit down and just pick apart a mix by every little line item by line item, and like be much more intricate and just, you know, fine-tooth comb than we've ever been now. Simply because we didn't set like a release date or anything before this happened. Now that this happened, it's like, okay, let's not rush anything. Let's really sit down. And like, I think I was actually speaking with her DJ the other day, and he was like, Alicia needs to be creating her confessions right now. This needs to be the time that like the best Alicia project that has ever come out is going to come out, you know? And on top of it, you know, Alicia is a mother. So she, at the same time, she has family responsibilities. She has her own employment that she has to handle in the meantime. So, you know, we have to do all the things that we can to make up for the fact that, you know, we don't have the way Louie and Cris are saying, and I'm sure Morgan's going to say it, and Gina's saying, like, we don't have all the tours, the shows, all the times to go to different radio stations. We could call in, we can talk to them and everything like that. But, you know, it's a rough time for everybody. I think I just read that Boise State, the college, just furloughed all their employees. Like the coaches aren't being paid right now. So it's a rough time, but at the same time, it's like, all right, cool. We can either sit here and we can cry about it, or we can take lemons and make lemonade. And we're not going to focus on the problem. We're going to focus on the solutions and the things that we can come at it as doing best. So Alicia and my business partner, John, they've been just cooking, like, and some amazing music coming out. And like, she's experimenting with different sounds. She's going in areas she hasn't gone before, going outside of her comfort zone. And I feel like she's taking the time to say, okay, I don't have as much pressure. Let me just freely enjoy this, you know, and enjoy the creative process.
Yeah, definitely. Morgan, what about some of your artists? Man, have you had some success in some regions?
Yeah, I think right now everyone is pretty focused on things that would have been a little harder to schedule, or maybe even seen as a luxury during regular touring times, because as everyone's pointed out, like, touring revenue is most of your revenue as an artist. Like, even if you're looking at like merch stuff, like, you're generating that through shows. So we've been focusing on projects like Kady's working on a stop motion video right now with Cole Burris. So that's really cool. That's a really time consuming thing.
That's awesome.
That would have been a little more difficult in other times. But right now, both her and Cole have a lot more free time. So they can collaborate on that and work on that. And we're pretty excited about that. And then a lot of my artists have been working on, like, Goons have been doing a series of kind of like reimagining some of their favorite songs and doing them in specific genre mode. So kind of just like doing covers. Like, you know, they did a Lady Gaga song recently in the style of like an 80s song. So just kind of completely reimagining it. So it's like an 80s chart topper. And then Jonny Jukebox, who's a R&B artist of mine, he's been doing, basically taking this time to remix the album that he put out last year. So just going through and like teaming up with producers and doing like, you know, new versions of all that, because it's a little bit easier to kind of just focus on vocal performances and remixing stuff and kind of collaborating on that and lining up features, because everyone is kind of in that building up content and working on new collaborations and productions and stuff, and adventuring and being a little bit more experimental on that. So that's kind of where everyone in my realm has been focused on. And then also just like, you know, basic, just trying to stay sane. So a lot of like group therapy sessions, basically, like just all of my artists, like that are in groups, we all operate on Slack. So our Slack channels are all just like everyone just being like, here's what I'm dealing with cabin fever today. And here's the outfit that I'm making my poor pets wear to keep me entertained, that sort of thing. So, and I think that's, you know, that's good. It's been a lot of, it's a shared experience, right? So like everyone is kind of like in that together and talking about, you know, how much they miss shows and how excited they're going to be to get back in that and be able to collaborate and even just like go back to like dank rehearsal rooms and like work on that. Like, I don't think that any of us have missed Music Lab as much as we're missing it right now. So
that's true. The playing with others has been, that's the one thing that's been really odd. That and like, I mean, playing shows. That's how I've made my living since 1993. You know what I mean? It's pretty insane. It's been odd not to play those shows, even at least one a week or something. Speaking of which, have you guys? This is a question because so many people are live streaming and they're doing it for two reasons. One of them, or for many reasons, but one of them mostly to keep their name out there and whatnot, and another one, of course, to make a little bit of money. Have you guys, any of you, found any sort of like monetary value or audience growing through live streaming?
I'll let Louie take that.
That's for Louie.
All of us immediately look to him like
Louie, Jackie does two a day, right?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
Just, you know, thankfully she does one a day. You know, we're lucky. She's got a really dedicated sister, Christina, who's sort of a jack of all trades that can help a lot with the live streaming aspect of it. But yeah, one of the things that we found that's worked, and we've done this with a little bit of Gina's streams as well, is sharing into relevant groups. That takes some digital elbow grease, but
yeah,
let me map it out for a second. So you find like, and this is more so speaking to whoever's watching right now, find like 15 or 20 groups that fit the musical genre or even the equipment that you use. Like for, depending on what, like for example, when I'm watching and kind of manning Gina's streams, I'm a part of Americana groups. There's a couple Latin music groups. There's a guitar group. And then there's broader groups like quarantine live streams that I share too. And then some of the bigger ones, I'll share I'll host a watch party. And that usually garners a couple dozen people at least. So it's just kind of
how do you share them to those pages?
Just click share and then share the group. And usually I found if you share with a caption, it grabs people a lot more effectively than just sharing the video.
Right.
And you like be mindful of the groups you're sharing into too. Like none of the groups that I've joined have like written rules against sharing videos and promoting.
Okay.
Like that's a huge thing. Like you don't want to come in there and be like spam bot, spam bot, spam bot.
Right. That's more of what I meant.
Unless that's
how
what
you
you're
share
into,
it.
You know,
that's what I meant is how do you share it? Because it seems like I don't know.
Gotten way
like
more
someone
versed.
Someone might be opposed because it's a little invasive at times.
I mean, everything's invasive now. We're in the internet
I think
age.
there's also a bunch of groups that Louie's talking about that are actually to syndicate live streams. So like that's their purpose.
Yep.
Okay.
Is like wanting live streams out there.
There's one called
so those are some of the groups that.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just gonna say there's for example there's one called Quarantine Karaoke, you know, and they love it. You know, there's a billion Facebook groups out there, and it's a great free way to build your audience. And so we've taken advantage of that.
They also need content all the time anyway.
All the time.
So for most of them, like they'll have rules that they'll put on the side that say like, you know,
especially the guitar ones, because if they don't have outside content, it's just like dudes with like widow's peaks.
Oh yeah,
ponytails, and then
easy, buddy, easy.
Somebody like Jackie and Gina, and then they're like, holy shit.
With their Louie, BC Rich guitars. Sorry, go ahead, Gina.
This is a question I've actually been meaning to ask you, and I figured maybe everybody can learn. So is there a difference between hitting share and doing a watch party?
Yes. So you kind of, all right. All right, I'm just gonna adjust my sport jacket for a second. So when you host a watch party in a group that you're active in, it triggers a little bit of the algorithm. Nothing's ever going to be the silver bullet like events used to be. You guys remember that? Any person that RSVP'd to your event would get a notification when you posted in that event. Those were the glory days. We'll never reach those again. But if you host a watch party in a place like a large group, to a percentage of that group, a larger percentage than just the people in the, like, getting a notification in the group that there was a video posted, they'll get a notification that takes them directly to that watch party.
Okay, so can watch parties be done simultaneously, or do they have to be done after the fact?
Oh, simultaneously.
Okay. And then do you have to like stay on the screen with, or has it already been, you know what I mean? Like if you were to share on like 5 different groups, would you have to have 5 different tabs open with all of your watch parties?
No.
Okay.
You can share multiple. It's juggling there. Because with watch parties, I like to interact as myself. You know, it's not like Gina Chavez hosting a watch party. It's like me, but then it's a different chat thread too. So people will ask questions, and some of them don't understand. A lot of them don't understand that they're in a watch party and that it's not going to your feed necessarily. And so like I'll drop your links, or I'll just answer questions, or I'll block and ban them if they say anything out of line. Just kidding.
Gina, you might relate to this. The other day I was watching somebody's live stream, and I was watching a good 6 or 7 people get into a conversation outside of what they were watching on the live stream. And I was like, oh, it's finally gotten to the equivalent of people talking through your show again. So
yeah, there you go. There you go.
You just can't hear it. Let's see. I'm going to go to some questions that we have here online, that we got online, to kind of keep some things going. Once again, as far as like monetizing things, I think I keep asking that and I'm not getting a concrete answer. Has anyone been able to monetize their live streams or any kind of like social media content, or up their merch sales?
Yes. Well, I think with that, it's you kind of want to focus on what the platform is. So specific platforms are better oriented for monetization. So like Twitch is one where it's much easier for consumers to just kind of give you a tip, and people who are on that platform are already used to tipping. Okay. So that's, you know, like if that's your main goal, that's where I would look at. And I know I bring it up every single time, but I still think artists are not taking advantage of Twitch enough. And there's a dearth of music material on Twitch, so you're not having to compete as much. Facebook is still not as good on the monetization front. Like I know that Louie's had some success with it, but you have to make people jump through a little bit more hoops to do it. And then
look, Facebook is not built into the app, is what you're saying.
It's
going to be. It is now.
The Stars program, the Facebook Stars program. Jackie just got put into that. I don't know. It seems at random a little bit.
It's in like beta right now, right? Like it's like an invite thing. Like, so not everyone can do it. And you're probably on there because your camp had already been doing that.
We haven't fired it up yet though, because here's my one concern with it. And I'm sure it'll be ironed out at some point, but it's so new, this Facebook Stars program. It's almost exactly like the Bits program for Twitch. I think
except for you have to preload it, right? Like, don't you have to?
That's my point. So that's my one concern with this system. It's like, well, the audience has to figure out this new program, right? Then they have to load it, and then they have to send it. Whereas if you've got like on the screen or in the comments a link directly to your PayPal Me or your Cash App or your Venmo, it's really one step. Yeah. And it's hard to justify moving away from that model to a brand new model. But I am glad that Facebook is at least addressing that. I do kind of wish it was just like the nonprofit donations.
Yeah, I don't know why it's set up the way it is, but it's just something to consider. Like if your audience is already significantly large on Facebook and is used to that, and you've been doing Facebook Live on that, you should stick to it. If you're trying to build a new audience and your audience is not necessarily already trained on that system, I would recommend Twitch. And then there's things like Instagram with IGTV which is great for promotion, but is not really set up for monetization.
Or building an audience. I mean, that's
yeah.
That's one of the toughest things I've found with Instagram is like, Instagram Live's cool, but how do you share a live video? You know, like
Instagram is a terrible platform for that. It's really just
Right.
like good for like getting caught up in hashtags and stuff. It's I don't really
Great for
understand
memes.
why. Yeah. But you know, if you have a significant audience on there, so like just to give it like from a metric standpoint, like Kady Rain has like 20,000 followers on Instagram. So like things that are put up there are going to get a larger impact than some of the other social media platforms.
Right.
And then we can use that to cross promote stuff. But we usually use Instagram for more things like makeup tutorial or talking about like clothes, or we're going to be like working on some like quirky stuff, like an advice show that Kady's going to be hosting and stuff like that, of just kind of like building more of the brand and the personality, and then steering those people towards other things like buying vinyl or, you know, connecting in other ways. And so you just kind of want to like be aware of what you're using each platform for. But on the monetization front, like really, like please try Twitch. Like I keep pushing people, like even like my band that I represent, Goons, like they're very video game oriented. So I keep like encouraging them to go over there because it's big for that. So if you're an artist who like is very big in like electronic production or hip hop and has like a lot of cool things that you can kind of collaborate with people in that world, I highly recommend it. And then Gina, looked like you were about to say
I was like, Jonny, I'm gonna usurp your role as as question asker. No, I don't know a lot about Twitch, and so I think I'm one of those artists that's like, I'm not super into like a gamey realm or anything like that. But sometimes being like a little bit of a fish out of water can help you stand out because you're not like other people, or it can also help you because maybe there's not a lot of musicians on that platform anyway. So I just don't know much about Twitch. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about, you know, what's a good, like how to kind of tailor your content for that. Is there, you know, is it live streaming? Like what else? And what are people looking for?
It's live streaming, but you can save stuff on there. The main thing is that it's personality driven. So that's the main reason why I keep suggesting that artists do it. So like, let's say like for you, Gina, like a thing that I would recommend is that like you have this kind of like ambassador role already. So if you were to do something, say like interviewing other artists on Twitch, or just like talking about that, or talking about like experiences with international touring and stuff like that, that's a thing that people over there would like a lot. Like just your personality. You don't even necessarily need to be performing music on it. If you're someone like Jackie, then a thing that would be useful over there is just like going over guitar tone, going over like guitar techniques, like just nerding out on guitar stuff does really, really well over there. So like their whole thing is more just, is this an interesting personality? Like even the video game stuff that's on there is more geared towards personality. Like one of my favorite Twitch channels is a guy, he's an Irish guy, and he has been doing a series where he just goes and just like tries to ruin Animal Crossing. So it's just him going and inviting people to his island, and then he checks in every day to see what horrible things people have done to it, like digging up all his trees or blocking him in his house so he can't get out. So it's just funny. Like he's not really doing even very much gaming. It's just like him just being like, oh no, look at this horrible art that someone put in my house in Animal Crossing. But the thing is that there's not a lot of music people on there right now. They are always trying to get people to use it for non-video game materials. So it's wide open. So like, and you can kind of make it however you want. It's kind of the Wild West right now. But anything that's personality driven, where you can just kind of talk, you know, there's not really the obligation to perform. They're not expecting you to do performances. Other than stuff like, I think the first big like music thing that broke out on Twitch was a guy who was doing, people could request a thing that they wanted him to make a song about on piano, and he would just like make a weird piano song, and that became like a big channel. Yeah. So, but you know, like if you're doing hip hop, like, and you do freestyling, like Twitch is perfect for that. Like someone like Zeely would kill on Twitch.
I love his freestyles.
So what about like my partner, and also one of the first artists that we managed, Paul, who's a trombonist, what's working for him as far as getting more visibility on Instagram, and then us just dropping his PayPal or Venmo, and he does get money that way, is, you know, on Twitch, could he nerd out on some of his techniques? Because what I find is on Instagram, those challenges, the PDE challenges that he does, where they all start tagging each other, and then he gains that traction and visibility. You know, you're talking about these like technical nerding out. Is that something that you see that like a sideman or somebody like Paul would be able to go on Twitch and do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like a good example is Kady's drummer Ryan Henderson did a video that went viral that was him playing with a group of I'm gonna totally butcher what classical instrument, but it was a brass group that was all doing Rush songs, and then he was the drummer for it, and it was just like the entire thing was all done with like a bassoon or something. I'm sorry, Ryan, I'm so bad, but you were amazing in it. So like stuff like that of just like watch this like marching band basically do Rush tracks.
So the audience is already there, like
yes.
Okay, because we struggle just like, you know, anybody in this group that isn't with under Louie's management, you know, the live streaming, we tried and just very quickly, it's not the way that we get any monetization. But a lot of that is just that we didn't have the jump start that like Jackie had. And so we already didn't have that fan base, and trying to get it now in a week or two's time, everybody saturated the market with their live streaming. And, you know, as we spoke about before, it's not all the best content. And so people just get kind of sick of it unless they already have the reputation that like Jackie and Gina have. And so we kind of have to try to get creative. You know, we started the jazz jam, you know, something that we miss. And it's just like taking turns, everybody calling a tune and taking turns. And we've asked anyone who calls a tune and wants to play their solo to drop their Venmo or their PayPal in there. So if anyone wants to get tips, that money is very, very little. But how do we gain something like that on larger amounts? And Twitch seems like it's the place. I know you recommended this last time, Morgan, and we haven't.
It's okay. So like the main thing to keep in mind is that, so the reason why I harp on it is because Twitch is gamified. So what that means is that for the people who are watching your channel, there is a motivation for them to be giving you money, because it pops up as this little thing like so-and-so has put in 1,000 coins or whatever they call the currency. So it'll do this little thing, and you can have like graphics. So it'll pop up, and if someone like puts in 1,000 coins, then it does some little fanfare, and everyone sees that that person has just like done this thing, and it animates it, and it gives them like you just feel happy about it, right? And then, so the other thing too, like with what you were talking about with the trombone, that's like ideal, because like a lot of the stuff that's on there, like there's one person who has a big account that is just a drummer, and he's just like, you know, tell me a video game theme song that you want me to drum along to. So like he'll drum along to the Zelda theme or whatever. So you could do a similar thing with trombone of like, hey, pick a song and I'll do a trombone solo to go along with it, or, you know, stuff like that. But it's all very like, since there's not a lot of music on there right now, your likelihood of getting put on the front page of Twitch, where like they say like, hey, this is a cool account, go follow it, is higher, because they're trying to get more people who don't just do video games to use it, so they stop being associated as strictly a video game platform.
Okay, I'm gonna text him right now and tell him to do it right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Reno, what about I know that we also talked about growing the audience during the thing, and it seems like Twitch is probably a good way to expose your people. Reno, have you found any new ways to grow your audience through social media, or?
We've gone a couple of different ways. I've actually gone down a few Reddit rabbit holes, and Reddit is another place that like just one thing catches on Reddit and it will spread like wildfire. I think Jackie has something where she copied the lo-fi like cover, and like it was on the front page of Reddit, and it had like 75,000 upvotes.
100,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was crazy. Like Reddit is an amazing one. Even with Alicia, the same way we were talking about like cooking and everything, we're like, now Alicia, as I keep joking around, she's a plate lady now, you know. We found different ways to monetize, because I think we can sit here all day and we can say, hey, this is working, this is working, this is working. Every artist needs to find their entire like unique way to connect with people. There's going to be some artists who can cook. You can sell food. There are artists like Kady Rain who does makeup. Like you can set up a premium, hey, one-on-one makeup session with people and do things like that. Like when you just do a live stream, you kind of cast a wide net. Sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not. Cool. If it monetizes, cool. But at the end of the day, right now you're investing in your career.
Yes.
I think even one thing I was discussing with somebody yesterday is like they were saying in another city, I think it was Seattle, there's like 20 bands who got together and they created a subscription-based website where it's like $20 a month. And the only way to get to the content from those bands, and they're like hard hitters in Seattle, they're like the Alicias, the Jackies, the Ginas, the Mobys, and everything of Seattle, is to pay that $10 to $20 subscription fee. And then that's where you find all their live content and everything like that. And they have something like, I think he said 1,500 subscribers. So that's $30,000 a month that's coming into them, and they just kind of split it between them. And that's the way they're monetizing it. So instead of saying, man, I'm gonna go live and I'm gonna see what's gonna happen, and hopefully somebody comes in and hopefully I come out of this, it's like, okay, we have 15,000 subscribers, they're paying $20 a month, that's 30,000, there's 6 of us, everybody gets $5,000. Of course, that's a very high level macro way of looking at it. Right. Yeah, it makes sense though. It's more solid, for lack of a better term. And I've even seen, because the way he explained it to me is, and it makes sense, is like, it's kind of like South by Southwest. It's like we can go out here and say, hey, we're going to live stream, like Alicia's live streaming tomorrow, and we are hoping to make finances from it. But you also have like, it's like South by, you have like us live streaming and wanting to get paid off of it and hoping that people pay in. And you have like Babyface and Teddy Riley doing a free thing over here. You know, I know where I'm going to end up personally, like, and I love all my local art, but like, you also have so many artists doing once in a lifetime things that, you know, it's like, okay, how do I stand out from this? What's going to make people pay attention to me? That's one of the reasons I love Twitch. If you go on Twitch, it's not the people who are the best at the video games who are making money on Twitch. They're good, but it's the people with the best personalities who are like, they're cats signing contracts with Twitch. Mm-hmm. Like there was one guy, I can't think of his name. He recently left Twitch to go to like another streaming one. And he was getting paid something like $3 million a year. Yep. To like just stream on Twitch, you know, so it's subscription based. Like, and so that's one thing we've actually been in the background, and I've been like maniacally kind of planning in the background. I was like, you know, it'd be cool. Like, what if AMF did a thing and like we all agreed, hey, we're gonna put our content on this central location. And
we've talked about that a lot.
Something like that. You're in a city of what, 1.3 million people. You convert 1% of that, and then that's something right there. Go ahead, Gina.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think from a musician standpoint, I'm just trying to pull some stuff together for other musicians. So I think one thing to think about is like, where are you at? Are you at the point where you need money? If you need money, then it's time to just get creative, you know, figure out how to like, you know, go on like whatever. Maybe it's doing something. I mean, one thing that's really big right now is all these families are home with their kids all the time, and they're not used to being with their kids. So anything you can do for children is probably a good moneymaker. Like if you can write a song with a kid, you know, like maybe you offer to do like, hey, I'm going to do a songwriting session with your child on something they love to do. Maybe it's not what you normally would do, but I bet you would get more bang for your buck doing something like that. And, you know, keeping a kid's attention for a little while and doing something that parents could love, you know, like, so that's one thing. Like if you are in a place where you're like, I need to make money, then great. Figure out how to make money. Like there's any number of ways. And I don't know if AMF, you know, like even Reno, you were just talking about that cool idea out of Seattle. I don't know if right now there's anybody kind of syndicating those ideas that's like, hey, here's a bunch of ideas that are just out in the world right now, because it is the Wild West. Like there is no way to do this. We're all learning. Right?
It seems like it would be better for artists to band together to do that. Like those people in Seattle that did it was a group of artists, right, Reno?
I was mainly just saying like AMF could like be a, like saying, you know, if there's some way, like, basically a central hub to say like, hey, here's some cool ideas we've seen out there. Or maybe it's not.
Actually, I don't know when the last time you went to the website, but we do have some stuff up there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would check out their site, and then also the Austin, Texas musicians on the MAP, the Musicians Advisory Panel. We meet once a week, and we all own different projects. Some of them are health and wellness. Some of them are educational growth outside of music if you're having a creative block. So, you know, one of us is working on a list of how to improve your knowledge in getting like a second or learning a second language, or like checking out things like free classes online. But also we get together on how can we help the community, or what can you do to generate some kind of income, or we're kind of tossing around ideas on what's been working and what hasn't been. And the whole advisory panel, the MAT panel, is made out of musicians or people like us in the industry. And then you could see it on their Facebook, the ideas that generate, and also on the website. I believe Pat is posting the PDF of what we're coming up with. And once a week we're getting together and generating those ideas. But also, yeah, Austin Music Foundation has some stuff like that on their site. Yeah. And what I think really what it needs is maybe a little bit more involvement of the artists. So as the artists start to see that it's there, I think it's really cool if everybody sees it, but I think it's even better if like you can contribute as an artist, and even reply with honest feedback on, yeah, I did try that, but for me, this idea didn't work and here's why. And offering that feedback, I think is what's the most necessary right now.
Yeah.
Well, a couple things.
I was just going to close out real quick just by saying, like, I think the biggest thing is figuring out, like, what do you need right now? You know, like, I'm an artist that very fortunate, like, I still have a day job, and I've had that, you know, and so I'm not in a place where I have to like go live every night and do the thing. And so it's like, I was doing that for a long time and then realized I'm draining myself. I need to figure out a more sustainable way to do this. And I still want to go live and I still want to be involved with my fans, but like, it doesn't have to be every night, you know? And so I think it's just mainly figuring out like, where are you at? And then go from there, you know? And if you have a space where you have some time and maybe you're not feeling creative, maybe it's time to just learn a new skill. Maybe it's time to just read a book and like check out for music for a little bit, like kind of do something that can feed you. And maybe that means physically feeding you, or maybe that means just like feeding your soul and like getting some space. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing.
I agree. And that's why I've been like, I think this is the time for artists, like show us who else you are. Like we all know you're a musician. We love your music, but I think Chiquita recently, even when she was, doing tutorials and like even doing cooking and everything like that, she was like, everybody who buys a plate from me during this time, you're putting money into that next mixtape. You're putting money into my next video. You're touring. This is you actually investing in Chiquita. Yeah, you're getting food out of it and everything like that, but I'm not seeing it just as a one-time transaction. This is you actually investing in my career. So we all have different things that we do. I know tutoring is a huge thing right now. There is a group of kids from my college right now who are like, they're banking on tutoring because there are a lot of kids who are at home with parents who are not used to doing algebra, or look, there are some
or just parenting for 24 hours a day.
Years, it looks rough when you go to do it. Like you go up to it like, oh, this is easy. Then you look at it and it's like, nah, I can't solve for why. I'm sorry. You need to call someone. So it's there's different things. Like there are a lot of artists who are extremely intelligent. Like I don't know if anybody's ever hung out with Moby, but if you go to
a couple things, the idea that Reno talks about is very similar to what we used to have in Austin with the Good Music Club, that Lori Gallardo and Richard Weimark did. So
right.
This would be an ideal time for that to come back,
right?
Which was it was very ahead of its time. But it also goes back to something that we've talked inwardly with our collective here, with a couple different ideas. One being that, like Reno had suggested, that artists should get together to collaborate and create essentially a live stream festival, like kind of like a South by sort of thing, where you like tune into different channels at different times.
They've been doing some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think just to kind of flesh out what he's talking about, the idea that I think when we were in just like a group text is like, it's almost like you turn the internet into downtown so that you have one stream that's like sponsored by Spotify or whatever, and you have another channel that's sponsored by YouTube. So that's like the YouTube house or whatever. And those artists are like set up during a whole thing, basically almost like a South by schedule, so that people go to a center website and you buy your virtual wristband, you kind of jump between different streams and things like that. But, you know,
honestly, and it was curated by the venues too, right? You were saying like the Red River Cultural District, and it's like, here's the Cheer Ups lineup, here's the Barracuda lineup, here's the...
Yeah.
And we'd also talked about a thing that I keep pushing for this, so I'm just going to put it on here and hope that maybe something happens. The city of Austin has channels on the TV, and I would really, really, really love for Austin to launch its own version of what classic MTV was. I'm going to bring this up a million times because
they had it for a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think right now it'd be perfect because it could be live streamed and it could also be broadcast on actual TV.
Yeah.
Just like running a media entity like Ovrld, I cannot tell you how many music videos are out there from artists that are just like not even getting out. You know, how many like live concerts have been recorded, the archives of Austin City Limits. Like there's so many others. Like Gina, I'm sure that like you have a million live shows recorded and performance videos or stuff that you've done for like Tiny Desk and things like that. That I don't see why we couldn't create a broadcast system that has that. I mean, you could even have it also stream on, I forget if it's Sirius or XFM or whichever one has an actual like office here that, as far as I know, only Willie Nelson uses. It's in the ACL Live building. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? The satellite radio, like there's like on satellite radio, there's a channel that's like Willie Nelson. And he's never on it. It's
like
just
Willie's
like the
Outlaw
Radio or something
Outlaw
like
Radio.
that. Yeah,
so
he has like his
Willie's
daughter,
Porch is
like
is
Jesse,
an actual place.
Dayton.
Yeah, and so it's like broadcast out of the ACL Live building, but like I've always thought it's really weird that we don't have like an Austin channel on that. Like the broadcast booth is already there. Like this seems like a perfect time for those resources to be brought together and for that to be broadcast, because like we have so much material here that's just generated all the time, and you could have different people curate different blocks of programming on it. I don't think it'd be very difficult for people to create 24 hours of content, even if it's just looping like how classic MTV was.
Have you has anybody floated this idea by the city of Austin music and entertainment department?
I've given it to Louie to give to them.
Well, because I'm in touch with them. I literally just did a PSA with them. I mean, I'm sure Stephanie and Dan and all them over there would be open to the idea of at least, because like I've even done, thinking of city things, like I have like a live performance that used to stream all the time at like the city hall. People would literally talk about it all the time. They'd be like, oh my God, I just saw you. And it was like from like 2009 or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because like right now, those channels basically just broadcast like weather and then the hold music. But the hold music is like Austin artists. But I just think that we have so much contact. And I brought up Richard Weimark earlier, but he's currently working on a book about the history of Austin music in the like 90s to 2000s. And he's been putting up like archival material. So like I know that this is all out there. Like there's just so much. And like as a media person myself, I would just love for there to be some sort of point where they could be collected and it could be promoting other people's things, and like we could rebroadcast live streaming stuff that people have done because most of those are recorded and put it up there, or just like say we're going to simulcast on this TV channel as well as on Twitch or Facebook or whatever people are using, and use that to kind of give you a boost, right? Because like, you know, if it's going from like, let's say Jackie's on at 9 p.m., but before that you have some opening artists that are like being broadcast and it's all run through that channel to like, you know, because people are going to tune in before that and get ready, then it would boost everyone. But yeah, that's my thing. I keep just bringing this up all the time. Like, please, someone make this happen. I don't have the resources to make it happen, but
I think it's gonna happen. I'm like 90% sure that Erica Chamelet is watching. So
okay, all right.
Everyone's scared to start something like that because they're scared in 5 years it's just going to be like the real world, like East Austin.
No, I think that like something like that would do so well because I think that people from all over the world have this like romantic view of Austin music and they would tune in. So like I've heard that from like people that have been over in other areas in Europe. Like I have friends that are like in Amsterdam and stuff that are just like, they just love Austin in general. So like I think them a thing.
Yeah, definitely. We should make sure that Erica knows about this. So I want to switch over.
She's watching, right? I see her on there.
I want to switch over to the questions from our audience, from the people watching the show. And I'd like to start off with a question that we're going to just go ahead and hand over to Morgan real fast. Here's the question. Will Twitch shut you down when you play copyrighted music like they do on Facebook and Instagram?
That's a tough question because I don't know how much people have been following what's been going on with the Supreme Court decisions over this stuff. So until relatively recently, what happened was if you put up something and it had even like 1 second of like, let's say that you were filming a drunken argument on 6th Street and in the background, a song by Ludacris was playing. The bots from the major record labels would find that and they would seize your stream but they don't want the video to go down because they're like 16 million views and we can get royalties from this. They would just take all of your ad revenue from that video altogether. So I believe it was last year, the Supreme Court was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't keep doing this. You need to set up an agreement with the content providers and you need to work it out. And it needs to be a fair thing where everyone is getting money, but you can't just keep seizing money from these things without actually having contributed anything when there's no actual malice. So what has been happening with platforms like Twitch is that they basically say you need to have the permission for this stuff. However, there are murky areas. I have to be very careful about what I say here. There are murky areas of it. So what I was talking about earlier that I suggested to Cris, of her artist who is a trombone player, of creating new material to go alongside an existing thing like a video game theme song, you're probably okay with that. You might get shut down. I don't know. If you're just doing a DJ set and you're just playing stuff,
right,
you're almost certainly going to have your channel shut down. But if you're doing covers, there tends to be leeway on that because you're creating something new. You're not just rebroadcasting material. You might get sent like a cease and desist from it, but usually in those instances, those entities are trying to get new listeners for stuff. So they'll just say, you need to give us 80% of the streaming revenue, all, you know,
even if you do like a ukulele cover of Stairway to Heaven or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, so a thing that I think people don't know is that Patreon was basically created specifically to get around this stuff. So Patreon was started by a couple people who were in a band that basically just did like weird covers of things. And they didn't want to have to pay royalties to artists. So they created this whole new platform where you would go on there and you would donate to the Patreon. So it wasn't part of the YouTube channel.
Right.
So they could get the money without paying anyone. So that's an unethical, evil thing that I don't like. What Twitch and them have been trying to do is a little bit more flexible. But, you know, you should avoid rebroadcasting anything. If you're going to do a cover, if you can, try to make it not be like someone on a major label. Try to reach out, do whatever you can to try to get permission on that. Or, you know, maybe stick to public domain stuff. If you're covering like a Rihanna song, yeah, you're probably going to get nuked.
Right. Louie, you wanted to add something?
Parody, you're fine.
What'd you say, Reno?
If you're doing a parody, you're fine, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a legal loophole for that. Yeah.
Yes.
So with Facebook, one thing that every musician listening, and Gina and Jackie are good. I already went through this stupid like process, but there's a thing that not many people, and I can't remember, did I talk about this on the last one, the Facebook rights manager? It bears repeating. Like, even your own music will get muted if you don't reach out to your distributor. And they don't tell you this. You'll learn it the hard way by being burned. But if you play even your own music, you need to reach out to somebody like TuneCore or CD Baby or whoever, DistroKid, and make sure that. Okay, so there's this white glove service called Rights Manager in Facebook. The record labels, distributors, they have access to it. You can apply, but they don't. They usually, even for an artist like Gina and Jackie who own their catalogs, they don't usually grant access. You have to go through your distributor. So you have to go to your distributor, give them the URL of your Facebook page, and say whitelist this. And then if you're doing performances on a larger platform, like I had to send them the Wharton Center's Facebook URL so that Gina's music didn't get nuked like right after the stream ends, you know? So you have to reach out to your distributor, you know, whether it's through customer support or if you have a direct contact and say like, hey, I need this in your rights manager to be whitelisted. Otherwise, after literally as soon as it goes off, it'll mute all the sections that it deems copywritten.
I saw that someone on the chat was asking how certain DJs are getting away with doing some of this, and the answer is money. Right. If you're a really big art, like if Jay-Z were to come on there and like just start like playing stuff, like yeah, they're gonna let that happen there because it's like that's Jay-Z and he's a huge audience. But they're gonna look at that as like this person is growing our audience. Like if Jay-Z plays a song by a new artist that's coming up, then that's going to be a huge boost. So we're not going to interfere with that. Right. But if you're like someone on anyone else's level, like, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to caution away from like saying that stuff is not especially vigilant on that platform yet, but I'm just going to outright say it. They're not especially vigilant on that platform yet. That's not to encourage you to do stupid stuff, but like just
don't do illegal stuff.
Yeah. And I think someone put in there that like they specifically say that covers are fine, rebroadcasting stuff is not. So there's other things that are going on with these platforms that's like way more complicated. Basically, though, you need to understand that all of these platforms are going to throw you under the bus rather than deal with anything. So even though they're making tons of money off of that, like Twitch is owned by Amazon, Facebook owns everything. They're going to basically just be like, it's not our fault. These people are just doing stuff. So you should go pursue them rather than suing us, even though they were the ones with billions of dollars. So just like, be careful, be vigilant. And even then, like things are going to slip through. Like Ovrld did a series a while back where we had artists come through during South by, and they did covers of Texas artists. Like the whole thing was they performed one original and one cover of a song by a Texas artist, and we got clearance for that stuff. But even in those cases, we had a band on there called Daddy Issues who did a cover of Boys of Summer that not only had we gotten clearance for, but they had gotten clearance separately because they liked doing the cover so much that they wanted to put on their album. And even with all of that, I am still constantly battling with Don Henley's like team about like, we have permission to do this. Why do you keep knocking this video down? Like, here's all the paperwork. And it's because you're dealing with just robots who just like it's not real. Like you can't get through.
Robots
There's no
aren't
like
real.
Yeah. They just like automatically flag stuff. So you just constantly get, so just understand that you're running the risk that if you are doing other material, that even if you have done everything right, those algorithms are still going to shut you down just because that's what they do. Like what Louie was saying with like, even if it's your own material, like that's all they do is just hunt it down and just stop it.
I have another question from the Facebook. I'll be releasing my debut album this year. A proper release show seems out of the question. 2 queries. Any tips on where I should send the video for my single to get the most airplay? And any advice on creating an online release event?
Should send it to Overload.
Question 1, everywhere. Go ahead.
Okay.
Overload and everywhere. We've seen success on YouTube and just some organic views that, when my artist has a good following on Instagram. So pushing that really hard on Instagram with links in the bio to the YouTube channel has worked really well for one of my artists. Didn't work too great for the other. So it all kind of goes back to really understanding, like what Gina said, where are you as an artist and what do you need? And then start sourcing out that way. Because if you try to do something like, I can just go out there and say, yeah, do what my one artist did. He got, tens of thousands of views in X amount of time. That's probably not going to work for everybody, even with an artist in our own family. It's just, some are great on Facebook, some are great on Instagram, some will need the help of Overload. Some will just, like Reno said, you're going to have to send it everywhere to kind of like see where it lands. But, I think that release strategies right now, there's no one answer. You can't do what we could do before. And if especially if this is your first time releasing your work, it's going to be really hard to figure out what's the best thing for you. But you can, what I would suggest for us, what works for us is releasing full albums is maybe not the best idea at the moment. Releasing singles and spreading that out and into a strategic process might be the best. And if artists ask me, and when I'm consulting them, that's usually the answer that I give them. Let's work on singles and strategy.
Sorry, but that could also change from artist to artist.
That could also change from artist, especially if you're a more established artist. But if you're a new artist that, you're just really trying to break through now, albums may not be the best. It's
going to take a lot of like sweat equity. Like this is a specific question about a specific artist. And if I'm putting on I'm an artist manager of a brand new artist that's trying to release a new album. Like they're going to have to put some sweat equity into it, infiltrate those groups, budget for digital ads, reach out directly to their favorite content producers. Like, it's going to take a lot of work, you know,
which you have the time to do right now.
Right.
What about you, Gina? Sorry, Rena, what'd you say?
So it depends on the role that you take with your artist. I think, you know, even when it comes down to that, it's like, do you have a publicist? What's the relationships that they have with different outlets and blogs and things like that? It can be everywhere from Alicia, who usually goes up on Singer's Room, to Maylot, who premieres videos on Billboard and things like that. So, you know, it all depends on your relationship. There's no one size fits all. You know, it all depends on like, the team that you have and the roles they play.
Right. Gina, what are you going to do?
What am I going to do specifically for what?
Well, you're
your
releasing an album.
Yeah, honestly, this is one thing I've been going back and forth with. To be perfectly honest, one of the main things driving me to actually release right now is that it's an album that's mostly in Spanish, and I'm trying to basically submit it in time to be eligible for a Latin Grammy nomination. And so if that were not the case, I don't think I would be releasing it as I am. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of my big, you know, that's basically like, that's the goal. I feel like just in the same way that we all have to figure out where we are in our career, where we are in our life right now, and what's necessary, you kind of have to figure out what game you're playing, right? We're all playing some kind of game, and you have to figure out what the rules are of that game. Right. And so the game that I'm currently playing is, you know, I want to have my name out in the Latin Grammy sphere. And so as a result, I have to meet the deadline.
Okay.
So I agree, though. I think if that were not the case, I would be approaching this differently for sure.
Well, and to promote the actual album, you know, Gina's booking agent and I have been reaching out to these performing arts centers, but that's because that's the smartest move for us, you know, like that's a huge audience or potentially huge audience for a brand new album where there's cost or there's a profit to be made there along with promotion of the album. But that's so tailored to our situation that, like, I don't know if I could ever suggest that to anyone else, because we already had the relationships with performing arts centers. We already had the tour, and this serves like 18 purposes for us. And I would say, if I'm trying to boil this down to how it could apply to someone who's watching this, because it's so tailored to Gina, I would say, whatever you're going to do, make it serve more than one purpose. You know, try to hit as many notes as you can when you're doing it. Like, Gina's playing the new audience. That's new fans, new merch sales, new donations. That's also building hard ticket sales. That's also promoting it's just stack what you're doing promotionally. Don't just try to rely on one source or one outcome. You know, you have to scattershot this, or you might find that your efforts are not bearing fruit. If that makes sense.
I think also oh, sorry, go ahead, Cris.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think also if you are already rethinking your whole entire strategy, and if you haven't already, tracked your entire album and you're still in the creative process, like Louie was saying, where you're weighing all your options, you know, what we're doing, a lot of what our team is doing is collaborating with each other and with other artists. And we're using everyone's fan base to support the other's fan base. And that way, when we come out of this, we have new material that we can either release strategically or simultaneously that's going to be tapping into a whole new audience for everyone. So it really depends on where you are creatively. But like, if you already have the content and it's ready to go, that would be a different approach. And then, you know, Gina's talking about, you know, she's trying to play that Grammy game, which is huge. And you have to be very careful. And there's actual rules to follow. Then the option of releasing singles or collaborating that's not on the table. So I think that there's a variety of ways that it can be done. It's just going back to square one and figuring out where are you, and that it's okay that if you have to rethink your whole entire strategy, because we have the time now. But what were you going to say, Morgan?
Well, I was going to say too that, like, just to circle back on the press end of it, I think a lot of artists, like when they set out on this stuff, even before this specific situation, when I talk to them, they don't necessarily know what it is that they're looking to get from coverage. And I think that that's something that you really need to consider, because I think you need to ask yourself, why do I want press? What type of press coverage do I want? Am I asking for a review? Am I asking for a premiere? Am I asking for an interview? And what is my ultimate goal with it? Because I think that a lot of people have this misunderstanding that music criticism and media exists to like bring in fans, which it doesn't. That's not really what it does. It's validity. It'll, get you on the radar of the right people. But right now you need to be aware that the media industry has been hit even more catastrophically than the music industry from this. Entire publications, including Billboard and the Hollywood Reporter, have laid off their entire staff. So all the people that you might have been reaching out to before, they're probably not there. And there's no idea, like no one really knows what those things are even going to look like once we get out of this. They were already in a very vulnerable position. So this is not a good time to be reaching out to media. Like saying that as a media person myself, it's just not, unless it's a place that's like a labor of love. And even, I mean, for all of us, like we're pretty much struggling on that. It's hard enough to like focus on like the things that get you paid, let alone running things that you just do because you have a passion for them. So a lot of those are just, they're not there. So if you're looking for some of that, if you're looking for like press coverage, a thing that I would suggest right now is a good time to hire a prominent music critic to write a bio for you. Now's a good time to do consultations with them about that stuff. They need money more than like anyone other than us.
Right.
So didn't Adrian Lane have that that bio right up where I'm trying to remember what she posted on Facebook.
A one pager or a bio.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. And a lot of our consultation is exactly that. She goes through a lot of points that we go through, artists that reach out for help on, I want to release, one of the main things I get is, I'm ready to release this album. Can you help me? And we go all the way back to the drawing board. What is your social media platform? What do they look like? Do you have a website? What is your branding? Where's your audience at? Who have you collaborated with? Have you had a publicist in the past? If not, what kind of media were you trying to get attention from? And now it's different because I agree with you, Morgan, in that now's not the time to be reaching out to the media, but the media actually has been pretty good for one of the artists that I consult, but their relationship was solid way before this even started. So these
if you already have that.
Yeah, and you got to really you got to kind of milk that. You got to really Rena was saying that Rolodex that you have, you got to really tap into that now. And I think I talked about this in the last webinar, building those relationships. And then especially in the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody was kind of freaking out, reaching out and just checking in on folks and being genuine about the relationships that you're building and very, very careful with who you're keeping close, especially during a tragic time, can work out to everyone's benefit. Because with Kraken, they've gotten write-ups in the Chronicle, and it just surprises me as somebody who consults. I'm like, well, how the hell did you do that? Those relationships were already pretty firm before that happened. So if you're not already doing this as an artist, you have to go back to that Rolodex, really just blow the dust off of it and start reaching out to people that you genuinely want to connect with and that you have the time and have the desire to offer help in return for help. I mean, that's what we've been doing. We've been really honing in on our philanthropy. And
it goes back to like what we said last time too, about when someone asked about how do you even approach media, and we all said like buy them drinks, like bring them out to your show and get them a drink or two or whatever they prefer. Doesn't have to be alcohol. But go ahead, Gina.
Oh, it's okay. I'll jump in after.
I was just gonna say that like right now, a lot of them are more approachable than ever, like specific critics. But the thing that frustrates me is that a lot of artists, they don't know who the people who are writing this stuff even are. Like they think of like someone like Pitchfork or Fader as a monolith. They don't think about the individual people that are there. The thing is, if you build a relationship with someone who is doing any freelancing, like we're not monogamous people in that regard. Like everyone who does music criticism is at a million places. So you want to find a specific journalist. Stop looking at it as like Fader or Pitchfork or whoever. Look at the bylines. Like look at who those people are.
You need to write that down and then send that to people. That's such a great point.
That you made the words, like took the words out of my mouth. Like
I am a writer, so there is that. Like
well, and I think to kind of piggyback on what all of y'all are saying is that there are things like right now we're in the Wild West, and the good thing about that is that there is no like norm anymore. And so I'm even working on a music video for the single I just released. And I've been reaching out to like, I'm looking to use dancers from all over the world. And a lot of them have like big followings or whatever. And I'm kind of like, a lot of times I'm the kind of person that's scared to ask someone because I'm scared they're not going to reply. And I'm like, who cares if they don't reply? They're just sitting around in their house like we are. They may have nothing going on. Like, so sure, I might reach out to like Jonathan Van Ness from, you know, Queer Eye. He may never respond to me, but who cares, right?
Yes.
Like there's
because
no,
he might,
like,
Right.
Yeah, because he
Exactly.
might, right? So like on some level, it's like take some risks right now because the chances of people actually replying to you and being excited about what you're doing are really great. And it's also an opportunity to build a relationship. So I think what you were both saying is that like, yes, right now may not be a great time to get media attention, but it might be a great time to build relationships. Because for me, my NPR relationships boil down to one person.
Right.
And I've been able to expand upon that, but for the most part, it is one person that has gotten me first listen, NPR Tiny Desk, All Things Considered, on a recent Spotify playlist, like, and that's a person that literally I invited to my wedding. Like, he's like an uncle to me, and it's taken years to develop that relationship. But now I can message him and say, "Hey, I've got a new song out," and he responds to me immediately. You know, so. It's not, we have to, I think it's a reminder to treat the media as people. They are, you know, they're not
they're
those
human
entities.
beings.
People think, oh, NPR, Gina Chavez, but it's really like me and like two people, you know, like, and so anyway, so I think it's just a good reminder to like take some risks, reach out to people that you love their content. They may reach out back out to you. You know?
Well, and that also goes on like something that we had talked about on the last one, which is that like when you go and look at specific media people's accounts, like they're putting stuff up, like their Twitters are very active. They're always looking for things, but you know, you have to treat it like both ways. Like no one likes to be objectified. So like if you're literally just only hitting them up ever to like try to get a premiere or try to get them, they're just not going to respond to it. And the other thing too is what do you do once you actually get that access? What are you doing to help promote it? Because all of these publications, they need exposure just as much as you do. So if they do a premiere for you and then you don't share it and you don't talk about it and you don't let anyone know, which I can't even begin to tell you how often that happens. And if I'm seeing that, I'm less likely to respond to anything you send after that because I'm like, well, this person didn't really do anything. Like they didn't promote it. It's the same thing as the show. If you get booked on a really good show and you don't tell anyone until 30 minutes before doors, the venue is not going to look very kindly on that. They're going to be like, this person didn't really play ball. But the other thing that I said before, one more, Reno, is Bandcamp. Submit to Bandcamp features, please. They have a really strong editorial, and I'm still not really seeing people do that. They are really good. They're actually doing really well right now. They're stable. They have a big editorial arm. So submit. Sorry, Reno, go ahead.
Reno, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you do not have Google Alerts set up for yourself as an artist or something like that so that you know when your publications come out, that is the one thing I can say could probably go for 90% of anybody watching. Like, set Google Alerts on yourself so that you know when these things are coming out so that you can share them. Because there will be publications who will write up about you that you never contacted or nothing like that, but they stumbled upon your stuff. And then that might be a new relationship. Like, that's one of the biggest things that we can, and I think all of us can agree on. This is a relationship-based industry. At the end of the day, if you're
a lot of the opportunities
get out and you don't build relationships, like it's pointless. Like at the end of the day, you'll be a really talented, never heard person. Like, you know, it's a relationship-based industry. So even when you're reaching out to people, I think one of the big things that helped us out when I first started with Alicia is like, when we went to the Chronicle and things like that, we just didn't like email them like, hey guys, here's a video. Like, we used to actually like drop by with like little gift bags that had Alicia's CD in it. We literally had a 6-foot tall guy in a penguin suit walk into the Chronicle with an Alicia Lonnie t-shirt on. And he had like a bottle of something. We knew exactly who we were going to. We went straight to Quran with it. And that's how we like built their relationships. Because at the end of the day, it's marketing. You're marketing yourself. So let's say if you're doing that release party, how are you going to get people to even pay attention to your invitation? One artist I consulted with, they took a book out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So they have an online release party, but they sent golden tickets out to like 17 different media outlets. They had a 90% conversion rate. I had somebody else, me and him worked on it, and he had custom toilet paper that had his album cover on it. Guess how popular that was? That went over great. So you have to like find a way to differentiate yourself. You're no different than a product selling itself. Why is Coke different than Pepsi? You know, why is RC Cola not as big as those two? You know, you have to find ways to market yourself and find ways to like stand out from the crowd. Otherwise, you're going to blend in. You're going to get lost in the noise. We're in a wild west, like everybody keeps saying. We don't know when this is going to end. Don't listen to the governor. It's not ending on May 1st. Like 1% has been tested. So we might be here for a while. So we really need to start thinking like for a long-term situation, not so much how do I get on this blog, but more how do I build a relationship with this blog so that for the next 3 releases I have somebody I can go back to. I can send out a mail merge to those people. You know, it's, yeah.
I wanted to get to a couple more questions before we got, I think we're still on the very first question. For those that are new.
But we answered it.
This is for the,
Did we?
No, I don't think so.
We didn't answer.
This is directed to the managers. For those that are new to the concept of modern representation by a manager, what are some of the roles and lane boundaries that an artist entering into a management relationship be aware of?
Can we say this live? Or no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, okay, so I'm a new artist manager. Our company is not even a year old yet, but I have been managing artists outside of LORO from before, and every expectation and commitment and boundary is different with every artist. It all goes back to, and I kind of hate to just kind of sound like a broken record on it, it's going to be artist specific on, you know, what should you be coming in with. I'd say though, what makes my job easier, because going back to building relationships, that's like the majority of what I do as a manager. It might be safe to say that that's a whole lot of what we all do as managers is build relationships for our artists and take care of all the business crap so our artists can shed and play and, you know, do their thing artistically. So coming into a meeting or a first-time consultation with a manager that you've never spoken to before, and it's just like a cold, you know, hey, I want you to manage me. When I get those messages, hey, manage me, I'm not replying. I'm not responding. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. And you're just hitting me up with, hey, manage me. It's just, you know, already I get the sense of you're not going to do your part in this relationship. So when I get someone that hits me up and they have already been reaching out, they've done their part to build the relationship, I feel like I can be candid with them and say, here are my expectations of you as an artist based on where you're at in your career. Let's talk about expectations that you have for me and following through on those commitments. It's going to be defined differently from artist to manager. And all of us here in this group manage very differently. We all have different strengths. But for me personally, it's somebody that already knows who I am or knows somebody that I know or knows of our company, knows our core values and our missions. If not, they're not afraid to really ask. And they're open to hard truths because we aren't going to want to help somebody who doesn't really want to help themselves and gets offended or hurt when we say, you really need a little bit more vocal training or some pitch correction. You need maybe a better rhythm section, or you're not the best live performer, but you could probably, you know, put out a really good album. You know, just any kind of advice that we have for them, that it's not taken as an insult, it's taken as feedback, that's productive. I think that's very good for everybody. And then you can also decide, and it's okay that the relationship may not be for you, that we in our company doesn't have what you would desire to offer. But look at this group here. If I can't do something, I know just here alone 3 other artists managers that we can refer you to that might be able to help.
Right. And in my consultations at Austin Music Foundation, sometimes people come to this needing a manager a little prematurely, where my only answer is make sure you've got something to manage before you bring someone else into this, you know? Like that's always a good clause. Any closing words, guys? I didn't realize we're coming in on 9 p.m. and I still have some announcements to make.
I just wanted to say, as the artist on this panel, I've been doing music.
One of the artists.
Yes.
One of the artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been doing music a really long time, and Louie is my first manager outside of my wife, who's also been an amazing manager. But it may take a long time to find the right person. That's all I'm going to say, is that, like, you have to be patient. And I think finding the right person is better than finding a person quickly. So,
Louie?
I think the other thing that we always say too is that usually, like, it's not that you necessarily like find a manager. Like, if you're just seeking out a manager because you think you need a manager, you're going about it wrong. It's usually the manager finds you, or you mutually find each other.
Yeah.
So
one of my, sorry.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, you go ahead, Louie.
Well, I was just gonna say, one of my favorite things to do is to have a phone call or a Zoom with an artist who says they need a manager, and like spend the whole time breaking down why they don't need a manager. Like,
it's so self-deprecating sometimes. It's just like,
well,
look,
it's just like,
I'm just gonna tell you don't need me.
Like, most of my day these days, especially in the pandemic, is checking in on people and then letting them know what Gina and Jackie are doing. And that's where the opportunities are coming from. But that's taken like years of relationship building, like very little is coming in versus me just being like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? But that's my style, and that's what fit. Right. Finding those bigger opportunities is what fit with Jackie and Gina, and building that bigger vision. But that's not every artist.
No, and every artist has different needs. And usually the best, at least I have found in my experience, that the best manager-artist relationships come about organically. When the manager becomes a fan of the artist, they become fans of each other as people and of each other's work, and then it works that way.
And but Jody was the clincher for me.
I want to thank you guys. Okay. I want to thank you guys for doing this again, and I want to thank Gina Chavez, Reno Dudley from Key Street Music, Morgan Davis from Overload, Louie Carr from Own Path Media Group, Cris Flores from LORO Management. Once again, we do want to thank Steve Carlos Kirk at Streak Systems for helping us bring this panel to you guys. I have some closing announcements real quick. This was a great discussion. Thank you guys for doing this. We also want to thank the Cultural Arts Division for its continued support, and for all of you for tuning in. A quick announcement: Austin Music Foundation is partnering with Music Cities Together and Austin Music nonprofits to collect data related to the impact of COVID-19 on our music community. Data will determine the outcomes for both government policy and assistance in the coming days and months. The music industry is virtually invisible to many policymakers nationwide, and we need to hear from all segments of the Austin music ecosystem, including music creatives, venue owners and staff, promoters, festivals, recording studios, record labels and management, production, support, music development and/or manufacturing, and anyone else who derives at least part of their income from music. We strongly encourage musicians and music businesses to take a few minutes to complete this very important survey. It will help us better access and respond to the needs of the music community. The poll closes on May 1st, so you got to act now. You can find the survey at www.austinmusicfoundation.org. Lastly, I'd like to thank the AMF team, our amazing music support nonprofit partners, and many other groups that are working hard to inform, create, and navigate efforts related to COVID-19. We're all in this together. I hope you all have a great night, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Stay tuned to our Facebook page for an announcement on Austin Music Foundation's next panel on the state of the live concert industry. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, man.
Thanks, AMF.
Thanks, Johnny. Great job, Johnny.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Johnny.
Great job, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Johnny, you missed the first question.